In Peru, police officers assaulted demonstrators and journalists standing outside Grau Hospital. In Bolivia, the government launched a campaign to tackle dengue fever in more than 140,000 homes in the department of Santa Cruz. And in Burkina Faso, thousands celebrated the departure of French troops and showed their support for the ruling military junta. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, security forces repressed people accompanying the wounded who were admitted to the hospital. Witnesses reported that the Peruvian police struck demonstrators at Grau Hospital's doors and assaulted journalists who were reporting from the place. After those violent actions, demonstrators decided to hold a sit-in and vigil for Victor Santiesteban.
We, as alternative press journalists, were broadcasting live outside the Grau Emergency Hospital, and we were waiting for information about the injured. Then a police command arrived and simply overwhelmed the people who were here as peacefully as they are now. They began to beat and corner many women. We were transmitting live at that moment. The police saw we were recording all these human rights violations, including the arrest of a young man. We followed them to see where they were taking that young man who appeared to be a minor and was in fact 17 years old. The officers surrounded us. They surrounded me, they beat me, they hit me. I have bruised lip. My lip is hurt. They even threw me on the ground.
In Peru, a young demonstrator was shot in the head and killed on Saturday night. This is the first death in the country's capital since the beginning of the crisis. Peruvian Ombudsman's office confirmed the homicide. The victim was identified as Victor Santiesteban. Through a communique, the Ministry of Interior attributed the death to a contusive cut wound behind the ear as a result of a blow. Other versions assure that a tear gas bomb was responsible for it. Another person is also reported seriously wounded. Counting this one, there have been 65 deaths already during the protests since the beginning of the de facto government of Dina Boluarte. The Bolivian government launched a campaign against dengue fever in more than 140,000 homes of the Santa Cruz department. Bolivian President Luis Arce announced the deployment of 5,000 people, including health professionals, armed forces personnel, and civilians who will carry out a comprehensive intervention in at least 160 neighborhoods throughout the department to control a dengue outbreak. The operation, called Shields in Defense for Health Against Dengue and Other Arboviruses, is the result of combined efforts in the Ministries of Health and Defense with Santa Cruz de la Sierra Mayor's office. Dengue has spread rapidly in the department, currently the most affected in the country with this disease. In fact, Santa Cruz declared a state of health emergency after registering 11 deaths from the disease since November 2022 and more than 1,000 cases so far in 2023. In Argentina, President Alberto Fernandez met with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. During the meeting, Fernandez and Scholz discussed bilateral trade issues, the flow of investments and project financing. The leaders agreed on the intention to strengthen cooperation in energy matters with a focus on environmental protection. German Chancellor visits to Latin America includes Argentina, Brazil, and Chile.
Argentina wants to become a reliable supplier of gas and energy. We are also talking about lithium. We are also talking about green hydrogen. All of this requires investments. As you have said, Germany is the first investor of the European Union in Argentina. So we want them to continue investing, to continue trusting us, to continue developing our business projects, to continue being successful as they are, and that we can promote all the potential that Argentina has in terms of energy and food.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, during a press conference, affirmed his country's intention to become a partner of Argentina to benefit the economic growth of both nations.
The possibilities that we have to take advantage of liquefied gas. There are many very important issues for the future, and also the extraction of important resources such as lithium are part of this. And for us, it is also important to do it in a way that is beneficial for the economic growth of both countries, that it is not something unilateral, and that it is carried out in a cooperative way. This is the perspective we are pursuing. This is also the intention of the Argentine government that this is achieved. That is why I can say that there are many investments planned for the future, and the delegation has come with this spirit. But it goes beyond the companies that are with us today. There are large parts of the German economy that have great interest in becoming partners in these areas.
The United Nations Children's Fund estimated that some 2.6 million children and teenagers in Haiti will need immediate humanitarian aid by 2023 due to the violent crisis that is sweeping the country. The number of Haitian children in need of humanitarian assistance increased by 500,000 in the last 2 years because of the increase in armed violence. The cholera outbreak, food insecurity, and inflation restricted their access to basic services, according to UNICEF. In this regard, Gary Coneo, Director for Latin America and the Caribbean of that organization, said that this is one of the most difficult times to be a child or teenager in Haiti since the earthquake of 2010. Let us take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at TeleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Portugal, dozens of teachers and other public education workers marched through Lisbon demanding better working conditions in schools, better salaries, and respect for their careers. According to organizers, at least 80,000 people marched between the Education Ministry and the Presidential Palace on Saturday afternoon. Saturday's march is the culmination of a growing discontent that also follows failed negotiations between the Education Ministry and the relevant unions representing the sector. Since November 2022, thousands of Portuguese public education sector workers have been participating in organized strikes and protests across the country.
It is disrespectful to us and to our profession. They need to understand once and for all that education is the pillar of any society. Only those who do not want educated people capable of defending their views can treat education this way.
In the Netherlands, police detained some 200 climate activists blocking a highway and a tunnel in the city of The Hague in the protest against government subsidies for fossil fuels projects. The climate movement Extinction Rebellion called on citizens to mobilize in The Hague to protest today against state subsidies for projects requiring oil, coal and gas for direct aid, tax benefits and price support given to energy companies. The activists blocked from noon on Saturday the A12 Hague Highway and surrounded one of its tunnels. In this context, the police arrested more than 200 activists, including 2 press workers.
We're going to blockade highways because we demand an end to fossil fuel subsidies, as our government is providing the fossil fuel industry with $17 billion a year. So they're pouring oil on the fire of climate crisis, and it has to stop now.
The humanitarian ship Geobarents docked on Saturday in an Italian port with hundreds of migrants on board. A total of 237 migrants were rescued, 87 of them minors. The boat docked at the port of La Spezia in northern Italy on the orders of the Italian Ministry of Interior. Once disembarked, the migrants had access to medical assistance before being transferred to temporary accommodation. It is worth mentioning that the assignment of ports far from the rescue zones is part of a new strategy of the Italian government, so that the boats have to leave the rescue zone for days and also entails higher expenses for the NGOs. The head of the Russian Duma, Vyacheslav Volodin, condemned the direct involvement of the United States and the member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in Ukrainian conflict. The head of parliament announced that heavy weapons supplies sent to Kiev from the United States and its Western allies had a sign of their direct involvement in the conflict. He also condemned the fact that Ukraine has become a testing ground for NATO and Washington to test their weapons and launch new ways of warfare. These statements follow Washington's announcement on January 25th that 31 M1 Abrams tanks will be sent to Ukraine. Moscow has branded Ukraine's bombing of hospitals as war crimes after the attack on a health center left at least 14 dead and 24 wounded. On Sunday, the Russian Foreign Ministry declared that the attacks of the Ukrainian troops on medical centers in the cities of Novoaidar and New Kakhovka represent war crimes. They added that the deliberate shelling of civilian medical facilities, as well as the intentional killing of civilians, are serious war crimes of the Kiev regime and its Western puppeteers. The day before, Kiev shelled the hospital in the New Kakhovka, a town located in the Kherson region, and attacked the hospital in Novoaidar of Lugansk with HIMARS systems, killing 14 people. In Belgium, the chairman of NATO's military committee, Admiral Rob Bauer, declared the international body is ready for a direct confrontation with Russia. In statements to the press, the high-ranking military official acknowledged NATO has lost its monopoly on military initiative and said it is ready to confront Moscow directly. He also stressed the member countries of the bloc need to switch to a war economy. In this sense, he expressed that the West needs to increase its weapons and ammunition production. Given this, Bauer emphasized it was important to establish priorities in terms of certain raw materials and certain production capacities required for defense production rather than civilian production, highlighting readiness and rearmament as one of the highest priorities. Italy's Prime Minister held talks in Libya on Saturday with host country officials, focusing on energy and migration major issues for Italy and the European Union. During the visit, oil companies from the two countries signed an $8 billion gas deal, the largest single investment in Libya's energy sector in more than 2 decades. Claudio Descalzi, CEO of Italy's state-owned energy company Eni, signed the deal with Libya's National Oil Corporation to develop 2 offshore gas fields in Libya. Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni, who attended the signing ceremony, called the deal significant and historic and said it will help Europe secure energy resources. In Palestine, the Israeli regime troops murdered an 18-year-old young man. According to local media, the victim, identified as Karem Ali Salman, was shot multiple times when he was on his way to the Kedumin settlement in the occupied West Bank. The incident followed Thursday's massacre of 9 Palestinians by Israeli army gunfire in the city of Jenin. In 2022, Israeli settlers and uniformed soldiers killed 224 Palestinians in the occupied territories, the majority of them in the West Bank. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Israel, some 40,000 people demonstrated this Saturday in the streets of Tel Aviv against the controversial judicial reform promoted by Benjamin Netanyahu's government. This is the 4th major protest against Netanyahu's government in Tel Aviv, a movement that has also spread to other cities such as Haifa and Beersheba. Last Saturday, over 120,000 people took to the streets of Tel Aviv, a number that went beyond the 80,000 registered on previous Saturday, making it the largest demonstration in Israel in the last decades. The judicial reform opposed by demonstrators includes, among other things, the controversial nullity clause, which allows a simple parliamentary majority to overturn a Supreme Court decision.
We are here in Tel Aviv to protest against the attempts to turn Israel into an empty democracy or a dictatorship that basically is canceling the Supreme Court and undermining human rights. We are here to stop that. Israel's government is trying to pass a legislative package that will push our country into a very dark place.
The Lebanese Foreign Affairs Ministry rejected the Israeli aggression against the Jenin camp in the West Bank, which caused dozens of dead and wounded. The Lebanese diplomacy welcomed the Palestinians' insistence on defending their land and denounced the decline of international interest in the Palestinian cause. The office described the Israeli regime's policies as abrasive and racist, while other Lebanese parliamentarians, religious leaders, and political parties joined the rejection of the escalation of attacks against the Palestinian population following the return to government of Benjamin Netanyahu. In Burkina Faso, thousands of people took part in the Sovereignty March to celebrate the departure of French troops and to show their support for the military junta ruling the country. With national flags and slogans against France, demonstrators gathered in the streets of the capital, Ouagadougou, after Paris confirmed on Wednesday the withdrawal of French forces from the country in a month. The withdrawal will mark the latest reduction of France's military presence in Africa, after the military junta in neighboring Mali also insisted that the French troops leave. In this context, the Burkinabe citizens expressed their support to the military junta presided by Captain Ibrahim Traoré.
Let them know that the time has come. We are 10 years old. We are adults and we are vaccinated. We have understood who we are and what we have and what we can do. We decide to take our destiny into our own hands, and it's not the international community or anyone else who is going to stop us.
In Iran, an earthquake of magnitude 5.9 occurred this Saturday in the city of Khoi, leaving at least 3 dead and more than 900 injured. According to the Iranian Seismological Center, the tremor with a depth of 7 kilometers shook more than 70 localities. The authorities of the province of Western Azerbaijan reported that the number of injured has risen to more than 900. In addition, the earthquake caused serious damage to some buildings belonging to public institutions, as well as to houses. Meanwhile, the Iranian Minister of the Interior, Ahmad Bahiri, informed that rescue teams are working in the area and that a camp has been set up for the immediate settlement of the victims of the earthquake. The country's armed forces are providing support to the residents of the affected areas. According to local authorities, a state of alert has been declared in the Iranian province of Khoi, while troops and rescue corps are preparing emergency shelter spaces for the victims. The head of the Crisis Management Organization, Mohammad Hassan Nami, said that due to the overcrowding in health centers, there is a possibility of establishing a field hospital for the affected people. In Colombia, a cold wave affects crops in rural areas of Bogotá, Cundinamarca, and Boyacá departments. According to local media, a layer of ice covers the fields, and crops in these regions register average temperatures below 5 degrees Celsius. These media also inform about local producers being affected by the low temperatures. A group of farmers reported that the cold damaged more than 5,000 hectares of crops. The livestock sector revealed they are losing close to 68,000 liters of milk per day, since they have to move their cattle due to the rains and the cold wave. Economists warn that after the loss of crops, prices in the sector could rise, affecting mainly local consumers. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.